Hello and welcome back to Jedi Eternal. I am one of your hosts, Andrew Bolin, alongside my Padawan, Braxton Taylor.
Shut up. I am not your Padawan. We talked about this off air. You know that hurts my feelings. What's wrong with you?
We had a rare occurrence where we actually saw each other outside of doing Jedi Eternal.
Yeah.
And anyways,
his father insulted me. Just put it that way, in front of a group of people.
Yeah, in front of an audience. My dad referred to Braxton as my Padawan, and Braxton's feelings were very hurt.
I was angry. I'm not gonna lie about that. Took everything I had, not just get up and walk out. Not your Padawan.
But, I've always looked at Braxton as my Padawan, but he refuses to look at it that way. But that's okay.
I see.
I still love you. I still love you anyway. Don't even. I don't want to know. Don't even say it.
Okay.
Don't even say it.
You know, in my mind, you know what I would say. So
lies, whatever it is lies. But anyways, welcome back everyone to another week of us talking about nonsense and Star Wars.
More nonsense all the time than Star Wars.
This is our 49th episode.
Oh my!
So our big
gosh.
50th episode, it will be next week.
Yeah. Which we had our huge 1 year anniversary. So I don't know that episode 50 is going to be anything too incredibly
It's
special,
not going to be anything that crazy.
Yeah.
I do have an idea for it, but we'll talk about that later. We won't discuss it on air. But yeah. So, anyways, as you guys may already know, this is right after a year of us being at Jedi Eternal.
Oh yeah.
So we're kind of in that. We're what we're calling Jedi Eternal 2.0.
Oh yeah.
And we're wanting to improve things, of course, and make things better for you guys. And in that process, we now have a GoFundMe that you guys can donate to if you choose to do so. We would love that support. You can find that on our Facebook. And also, we also have a merch store. Now, I've been telling you guys that we have some more merch on the way. I'm still working on that. Unfortunately, for some reason, they keep declining our designs.
Yeah, funny enough, they approved the first one.
Yeah.
And we upload two of them. They're the exact same thing, but with color changes and a couple textual changes.
Yeah.
And it says, sorry, copyright. Well, why did you accept the first one then?
Yeah, it's saying there's copyright issues.
I don't
so
know.
Anyways, we are working on that. Hopefully, we'll get that ironed out. You'll have a lot more options on the merch store eventually.
Yeah.
But until then, there is some stuff on there, some T-shirts, hat, different things like that you can check out.
Hoodies and things of that nature. So,
but sometime in the hopefully near future, there will actually be even more variety there for you to choose from.
Yeah. So anyway, if you guys want to go and support us at that any way that you can, we'd really appreciate it. Huge shout out to all of those that have already done so.
Yeah.
Because I know there's people who's been ordering who hasn't even told us, because we get the emails that says, there's new shop
but
order.
We can't see
who it is. So huge shout out to whoever it is, and big thanks to those who have told us.
Yeah, and also when you get your merch, go ahead, throw it on, take a picture, tag us, let's see it. We would love to know you got something from the store.
Absolutely.
And of course, it doesn't hurt to share it that you got it, and everyone else.
We'd like to know too. And we thought two things. I was gonna say, first thing with the merch was that we'd love to maybe make a big compilation picture with everybody. So that'd be kind of cool, and maybe share it, whatever, if you guys would let us.
Yeah.
But on a side note, we just talked about how we had our 1 year anniversary. During that, we did a book giveaway, and just want to say that we did select a winner, which was Guillaume Durand. I've been practicing that, so hopefully that you appreciate that.
It sounded good. I mean,
Guillaume Durand. That sounds probably so bad to you. Anyway, no, for real though. So he just got his book, so we just want to say congratulations again to Guillaume. Great. It was great to have you listening with us and be a part of that contest. So those of you who are listening, I know that I think John Poe was one of them, saying, "Hey, I kind of caught into this late. I would have loved to got into this during our live stream." We're gonna always have some contests. May not be like every week or every month or whatever, but when big stuff happens, we always try to have some giveaways, live streams, things of that nature. So we would just we'd love for you guys to be a part of this. So anytime you keep up with our Facebook page, Instagram page, and we'll always let you guys know.
Yeah, and there'll definitely be more soon. There are books on the way. more High Republic books on the way this year.
Yeah,
I'm sure
absolutely.
we'll do some giveaways for that stuff. So just keep an eye on our Facebook. That's the best place to keep up on what we're doing. Anytime we have anything special going on, it'll be there. So yeah, but let's jump into the news. It kind of seemed like it was going to be a slow week.
Yeah.
But then we started to get some interesting things here. So let's just get the big one out of the way here.
Right,
that I'm
right.
sure at this point, you guys listening on Saturday will have probably heard about this. Maybe by Saturday have heard even more about this.
Yeah,
there is
sure.
there is a possibility of that even. But let's just get this out of the way and then we'll move on. But Gina Carano is no longer a part of Star Wars. Lucasfilm has decided to part ways with her, and they have said that they have no intentions of using her ever again, and that's straight from Lucasfilm themselves, based off of some things that she has said. That was basically what they said was the reasoning, and she's gone. We here at Jedi Eternal we don't get into the politics of things. We're not going to get political on you guys. We're here to have fun and talk about Star Wars, and really the politics and things is not really necessary for this podcast. So we're not going to get into any of that. But what we do want to talk about is what this means for the future of Star Wars content.
Yeah.
And
specifically
of course,
things related to her character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what we will say is, of course, it is a bummer that this character now may no longer be in Star Wars.
Right.
Not even mentioning the actress or anything, but just the character
right.
That we have started to learn about and grown to appreciate is now potentially going to be written out of existence.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. I mean, obviously, there was a reason that Cara Dune was written into season 2 of Mandalorian pretty heavily, and this is a tactic. It's not even just a Disney thing, but this is just common sense writing. If you want to introduce something new that no one's ever seen before, but yet keep it attributed to something. Like Star Wars, this reoccurring theme that everybody knows. How do you do that? Well, you introduce something new with something you already know very well. And I think that was the point with Cara Dune, is that they was going to bring her into season 2 a lot more heavily than season 1, really get her integrated, really get people to know her character. And then whenever Rangers of the New Republic come in, that was going to be kind of the big catalyst, is that the Rangers of the New Republic is going to come in. Okay, well, we're going to probably see a lot of characters that we don't know. We're going to see a lot of characters, places and themes that we're not going to be familiar with or just getting introduced to. And then it'll be Cara Dune, though, who's kind of the catalyst, right? That's going to kind of, I know her. How does she fit into the scenario? Okay, then now I have the context to build off of everything else. So my point is that now that she may no longer be a character anymore or written out or what have you, it's going to be very interesting, at the very least, if nothing, just to look at Rangers of the New Republic and to see what happens with that.
Well, we know that Gina had already said some controversial things in the past, and so there was already a push to get her out of Star Wars for a while now. And so when you look at the timeline of production, season 2 may have already been mostly made when all of this really started to ramp up.
Yeah.
And now, basically, from everything I've read, the reports I've read, they were just waiting for an opportunity to do this.
Right. Right.
And so now she made some statements over the past couple days that Lucasfilm felt were enough for them to give her the boot.
Right.
And now we're here. And so, with that being said, season 2 of Mandalorian definitely made it seem like there was more coming from her character, right? There was rumors that there was going to be a show about her and who was it?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember what her name is. The Mandalorian.
Bo-Katan?
Yes, Bo-Katan, thank you.
Interesting.
There was a rumor for a while.
I didn't hear about that. Yeah,
there was a rumor for a while that there was going to be a show about them. And reports are now saying that got canceled due to the first round of controversy.
Right.
So then it kind of seemed like, okay, well, it looks like maybe she's going to be a part of this Rangers of the New Republic. But now that seems pretty unlikely as well.
Most likely, yeah.
Of course, do I think that means that show is canceled? No, not really. I think there's others that could carry that show for sure.
Sure, yeah.
But the other thing to look at here is, do they recast this character?
Yeah, and that's a possibility. I think it would be hard because although she's fairly new, we could get away with it if it was like the first season of Mandalorian when she's in it like five times, right? Like a total of 5 minutes was what I was going to try to say. But now that she's been so cemented in season 2, I think it would be very difficult to recast the character. And more than likely, they're just going to have to write around it. And that's going to be the case, most likely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely going to just depend on, are they going to just trust that people will accept that it's someone else and kind of just trick our brains into accepting this is supposed to be the same person,
right?
Or do they just write her out? She's dead, or she's just gone at this point,
right,
and just not a part of the story any longer. And I think part of that may depend on how important she is into what they've already are planning.
Sure, exactly.
You assume. Yeah. Based on what we've heard, they do have some plans in the works for what the future of this Disney Plus series is.
Right.
And with that being said, it depends probably on just how vital her character is to all of it. You would assume not incredibly vital,
right?
But potentially does hold some significance, and so I think that probably is going to be the deciding factor there.
Yeah, I agree. And we're going to kind of close up on that because we could, we have our opinions. We're going to talk. We could talk about what we believe and don't believe, but we're not going to do that. So, just wanted to at least address it because we knew that this was something that's going to come up. And a lot of people are going to hear about. And, hey, we want to always be on top of the news no matter what. Furthermore, we also wanted to maybe discuss the implications of what that's going to mean for the character of Cara Dune. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of up in the air as of right now what's going to happen to that character. But only time will tell. Only time will tell. Yeah. So anyway, let's move on. Something a little less dangerous. So so let's see. Our second news piece for the week is that there is unrevealed Star Wars game coming from Zynga, such creators of legendary games as Farmville and whatever the other one's called, like City something, I don't even know. But anyway, they do a lot of like online Facebook games, especially back in the day, especially around the 2010, 2012 era there. But they, anyway, so there's supposed to be an unrevealed Star Wars game from Zynga that's going to launch by the end of 2021. So, which is pretty interesting. We've heard about this before. In fact, we even talked about this on the podcast before, and we kind of speculated, is this going to just be another mobile game? But I think at that time they had released they're working to cutting edge, state of the art technology and great writers and stuff like that. And I'm like, so what in the world is Zynga going to be doing?
Yeah, well, so their mission, as it says, is to bring AAA console visuals and deep, compelling gameplay to mobile platforms.
Right. So it's still going to be mobile. I remember that now. It's going to be mobile, but yet at the same time, it's going to be more story-based, more compelling story or deeper gameplay, maybe.
It doesn't necessarily say that, but...
just the way they're talking kind of insinuates that it could be something like that. But I definitely think they're going to go for his visual appeal for sure. I mean, I don't know, right? I really don't know what to expect from this.
Well, it says it's going to have a soft launch in summer. That's what they're hoping for, is a soft launch in summer, and then officially launch by the end of the year. I would say this is going to be a, console-like graphics, really high-quality moisture farming game on Tatooine.
Right. Yeah, I could definitely see that being the case, honestly. Moisture farming simulator?
Yeah, moisture farming simulator 2021.
Yeah, you start off at the Luke's home compound, then you go to Tashi Station next.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can see that. I honestly could see that. I'm not even joking.
I don't think that's what this is.
No, I don't think that's what it is, but I could see I wouldn't be surprised.
Really, I really don't know. I really don't know what to say.
I don't know either.
This could go so many different ways. Until we hear more, it's kind of hard to even assume.
I would say it's not impossible.
Because you have to remember, this is Zynga, but this is a new studio.
Sure. Yeah.
So this technically is not the developers of Farmville.
EO Farmtown.
Or, I mean, I guess maybe some of them could carry over, but
right.
like this is supposedly a new studio branching out off
yeah,
from that, so.
Right. Which also, I kind of forgot what I was about to say earlier, but what I was going to say is that, they very well could be just trying to branch over into a new era of, mobile games that are a little more story-based, or maybe not even just story-based as much as just very great graphics, looking good, high fidelity, and smooth gameplay, whatever that gameplay will be. Like, for instance, back in 2008 or something along those lines, we had... I literally just forgot what it's called. Huge iOS game. Infinity Blade. And if you remember, Infinity Blade looked fantastic on the phone. I mean, as good as it could. Anyway.
Yeah, I was using the Unreal Engine.
Yes.
It was like one of the first times for mobile, yeah.
I mean, that's been over a decade. It's been over a decade, from my understanding, since it came out. So, I mean, it's not impossible for them to have really good graphics, really good looking things on the phone, especially with the phones that we have now.
Oh yeah, well, some new tech was just shown. I believe it was in just the past couple of days of what graphics are going to be able to be for like human animation.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you see that?
And like hyperhumans or metahumans, or what they call them.
I think is what they called it, and that's something that they're bringing to phones, consoles, computer, everything.
That's nuts.
Not only that, but you can mess around with it yourself on a browser.
Oh, really?
On your computer, on a browser. And so, like, that's insane to me that level of quality is going to be so easily accessible. Now, I don't think it's out just yet, as far as, like, for someone to, if they want to go try it. I don't think it has been released yet, but that's what they're promising. So, so just the fact that exists, that technology exists, like things are going to get so crazy with graphics, and I think even on mobile, you're going to see a jump in quality here real soon.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
that's gonna be really cool. I mean, I don't know what to expect. I'm not a huge mobile gamer. In our generation, that was kind of a laughable statement, a mobile gamer, but honestly, there's a lot of younger generations that's growing up who do consider themselves a mobile gamer, and play on their phones and stuff, but play actual games. I mean, we got like stuff like Fortnite and things of that nature, PUBG, that's on phones now and stuff like that. So it's not impossible. Yes.
Well, Fortnite and mobile hasn't worked out so well.
Yeah. Other than that, but you see what I'm saying. You see what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Free Fortnite.
Hashtag free Fortnite. Yeah, well, Apple's not the best with that anyway. But anyway, but my point is that clearly there is this new generation of mobile gaming that's kind of coming up, and so Zynga has been kind of the forefront of this online mobile gaming type thing for a long time now. So I could see them maybe wanting to up their game and change directions a little bit.
Yeah, I got to tell you this. This doesn't have anything to do with Star Wars, but I have to tell you anyways.
Okay.
So, as some of you may know or may not know, is I give drum lessons, and one of my students the other day, I was giving him a drum lesson. We had just started, and I asked him. I said, "So did you practice any this week? Did you spend some time practicing?" And he's like, "Ah." He's like, "Well," it's like, "No." He's probably like 8 or 9. He's like, "No." He's like, "I was just too busy cranking 90s in Fortnite."
Cranking 90s.
What does that even mean?
I really don't know. Cranking 90s? And we're getting old, like, dude. We're not even getting the new lingo anymore.
So I was like, cranking 90s? He's like, yeah. He's like, I've just been cranking a lot of 90s.
I think maybe he's making that up, dude.
I was like, okay.
I watch a lot of TikToks. I think I would know about this. I don't know. I'm looking this up now.
You couldn't practice your drums because you were cranking 90s.
It appears to be real.
Okay. What's it mean?
Crank, generally used in combination with 90s, as in the phrase cranking 90s. This just means that you're doing a lot of them really quick and cranking them out.
Doing a lot of what?
What's a 90? I don't know. It is under Fortnite terms and glossary, so hold on. I'm trying to find it. So 90 is... Stop anyway, this is a term for specific technique of building. That is considered the fastest way to get to the high ground on a player. Okay, that's why I hate Fortnite. You like blink and these kids get like a 20-story building.
Building's the worst part of Fortnite. Yeah.
To perform a 90, you place 2 walls of floor and a ramp. Okay, I've seen that before.
Okay.
Cranking 90s.
So
Cranking 90. That's funny. That is funny.
Well.
Next
time he tells me he's cranking 90s, I'm going to trip him.
I'm going to smack him and then tell him to get out of my practice room. You're not allowed back anymore.
You're not coming back till you quit cranking 90s.
Go crank your 90s. You're not cranking any sick beats on the drum set.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with Star Wars. Sorry, guys.
Okay, moving on to our third and final news story for the day. Pedro Pascal has this again doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Star Wars, but we'll get to how it does. Well, we will. I promise you, it does turn around into Star Wars. But Pedro Pascal has joined HBO's The Last of Us series, and he will be Joel.
Wow, that's a big role right there.
That's a huge role,
very big role.
It's very interesting, and I'm sure some of you that listen to us probably are The Last of Us fans because, if you're in if you're into gaming and that kind of thing, you're probably somehow connected to that as well.
Right.
But with that being said, what connects this more so to Star Wars, other than the fact that he's in The Mandalorian, is that they're saying that Pedro Pascal is in first position for this. And what that means, first position means that ultimately that show wins out if a scheduling conflict ever arises or anything else.
Interesting.
So no matter what, The Last of Us is the most important.
Right.
And that's interesting because, as we know, Pedro Pascal is the Mandalorian.
Right.
And we know there's going to be a third season. We know that there's potential he's crossing over into some other things.
Sure.
Here in the near future. And so I guess the question is, do we think that this potentially could cause issues in the near future?
Oh, it definitely could. I mean, I'm not saying that it will, but it's definitely possible. And what's funny to me is knowing Disney is the conglomerated monopoly that they are. I can't believe that they don't have, what do they call it, priority or whatever you said, first position, right? I can't believe that they didn't have in their contract first position for Disney stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, isn't it?
I can't believe that.
Yeah, you would assume that he didn't because...
Here's the thing, and this is probably how he got away with it, is that he's typically the voice 9 times out of 10.
And that was what I was going to bring up next.
Yeah.
I mean, as we know, in the first season especially... it was mostly just his voice.
Right.
In the second season, he spent some more time in the suit.
Right.
But from everything we have heard and speculated on, it appears like potentially in season 3 he was going to not have to hide his face as often.
Right.
Just based off the story, where the story was at. And so
right.
You would assume Pedro is maybe going to be shown a little more in this next season.
I do think that's true, and I definitely thought the same thing, but now that I'm thinking about it, one of the only reasons that he even started like going back on that is just the fact that he had to sacrifice for Grogu, right? So now that Grogu is safe, he's being trained by a Jedi, he might kind of fall back on his ways.
Maybe.
And if nothing else, that's just the way they're going to do it to combat conflict.
I mean, I'm personally hoping that that's kind of part of his character growth, though, and that he realizes
I agree.
That the helmet is not necessary,
right?
And so I was hoping that kind of that was the moment that he made that decision, but maybe it's not, and maybe he will continue to leave it on all the time. But either way, they can work around it probably, just keep him in the helmet more often anyways.
Yeah, they have really good mocap stuff that they'll, they can put on there. So,
but anyway, it's just interesting that he's taking on this role because
that's very interesting.
This The Last of Us from HBO, it will be a huge show, like big. No doubt, it's going to be a big show,
very big.
And so it's interesting that he's taking that on while also still committed to what he has to do for Disney. And I don't know where the production like I don't know how that stuff's going to line up. We know
right.
that production for this Mandalorian season 3 is supposedly probably going to start with the next couple months, right? Because they're finishing up Boba Fett right now, as we understand. So, with that being said, like if The Last of Us starts production soon as well, you know, there's going to be conflict there.
I do agree. I just think that most likely they're probably going to plan around that a little bit. I haven't heard hardly anything about this Last of Us thing until this news piece. So I would imagine that most likely the Last of Us will probably be filming a little bit later, or they might intersect just later on.
I just don't want it to turn into a Henry Cavill Justice League scenario,
a CGI mustache.
Yeah,
issue,
well, because you know, with Henry Cavill, you know, he was on Justice League. They filmed like most of the movie. Changed directors, decided to refilm most of the movie, but at that point, Henry Cavill was already a part of James Bond, Mission Impossible, and they didn't want him to shave off his mustache, so they had to CGI it just to fill everybody in.
That you could just shave it. This dude guaranteed could grow a mustache in like 30 minutes. Like I'm like, I don't think it would have been an issue, but okay.
Yeah, and it just made him look horrible the entire.
Really bad.
So it's just things like that. We know what can happen, and it does worry me about what could potentially change in The Mandalorian because he signed on to what in the story may they have to go, oh, you know what, we can't have Pedro for like 2 weeks, so we're gonna create an episode where he's not even in it, and we're gonna do like a just to keep things going, we're gonna do a side story about, you know, blah blah blah,
exactly,
and may just kind of. I'm not. That's just way out there idea, but you just never know what they might have to do.
You have no clue what conflicts might arise because of that, and you know, and they may have talked about it and been like, oh yeah, well, you know, you're mostly a voice actor for this rather than an appearance, and we can work around that, and it might happen a little bit later, so we can work around that, and blah blah blah, right? But they don't know. I mean, they have no clue until it actually happens, till the rubber meets the road, what the plan's actually going to be and work out like. So it's going to be a little scary, a little bit iffy, but overall, I think they'll probably, you know, Disney's Disney, you know what I'm saying? They'll figure something out, I'm sure.
So we'll see. We're going to jump into our rumors now, and we have like 5 rumors for you today.
Wow.
There's a lot of interesting stuff out there. So strap in, and let's jump right into our first one here. Our first one is about the actress Janina. As we know, she played Iden Versio in the Battlefront 2 campaign. And there was a little Twitter exchange that we found to be pretty interesting. Crafter Anonymous on Twitter had tweeted, wow. So what's Iden Versio up to around the time of The Mandalorian, asking for a friend, and then put and tagged Janina in it. And Janina tagged Mitch Dyer, who was the writer for Star Wars Battlefront 2, and she says, want to let him know. Whoa. And he says, during the timeline of Mandalorian, Iden Versio is a former rebel in ex-special forces, a war hero, married, friends with Shriv, about to be a mother, ready for more stories.
I just want to point out you said hero. So
no, I didn't. Did I really?
You really did. He's like a war hero. And I was gonna say something like some joke about Mario, but I just let you keep
Did
going.
I really say it? That's funny.
Hero we go.
Hero.
It's me, Hero. Anyway, so that's interesting.
It's me, the Mario.
So I mean, it is interesting that they're talking about maybe having more stories.
Yeah. So it says, for those who are curious what she might be up to. Oh no, he after he says that, he says, for those who are curious what she might be up to, I know I am. So, of course, like none of that is stuff we didn't really already know. We understand that that's kind of where she was at during that time. Of course, we know the end of her story, but there is that middle that could still be filled in.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, again, we've been talking a lot about these characters from Battlefront 2 they're up to something.
Right.
And I think this just kind of even more solidifies that idea that like something is being created for those characters.
Yeah.
And maybe it's something else that we're going to speak on. And if you want to go ahead and bring that up right now.
We'll just go ahead and do the next rumor because it could potentially tie in,
yeah.
even if it's real, not real, whatever, right? So apparently EA has another Star Wars shooter game planned for this year, which blows my mind. I mean, I don't know what it would even be. Battlefront 2 or Battlefront 3, some people would think, or the whole sequel to Battlefront 2, whatever. I don't know. But the fact that it's potentially coming out this year, and we don't know anything about it yet, that is really weird, especially for a game. And then get away with that for like TV shows like Mandalorian and stuff like that. But yeah, usually games have a lot more hype than this. So it is interesting. But yes, you're right. So what is it? And potentially, it could be, if it's another shooter game, it could be continuing the story of Battlefront 2's characters, such as Iden Versio, and kind of showing them as rebels and stuff like that. But what's interesting is how whatever you say his name was, the writer, he basically said that she's a soon-to-be mother, ex-rebel, ex-special forces, blah, blah, blah. And it made it really sound like, yeah, she's ready for more stories, but how much is she actually going to do, because she's ex all this stuff, and she's about to be a mother. I mean, what all could she do in that moment? You know what I'm saying? So it is interesting how he worded it like that, but then came right back around and said, oh, she's ready for more stories. So I'm not sure what that means yet.
Yeah, I got some details here for what that might potentially be. They just say EA is working on a small-scale Star Wars game that will release later this year, and this is coming from. Let's see. I'm trying to find the source. The source is Gaming Leaks and Rumors. So there you go.
Sounds very official.
Yeah, very official. But they said game has been in the works for a little over 2 years. Much smaller scale project than something like Fallen Order, akin to Squadrons.
Interesting.
It's a shooter, but I'm not confident if it's a traditional first-person shooter or a third-person shooter, just that it involves gunplay. Will release Q4 of 2021 for all major platforms, excluding the Nintendo Switch, and It's being developed on Unreal Engine 4.
Well, I don't know I don't know what kind of shooter would be equivalent to Squadrons, which is a very kind of two-dimensional game. No offense to people who like it, but it is a two-dimensional game, right? It's just dogfighting, right? Now it's very intuitive for dogfighting, but it is pretty two-dimensional. So what that would equate to for shooting, I'm not sure. Maybe something free-to-play almost. That would not be too surprising for me with all this era of free-to-play stuff.
Maybe, or maybe even a strategy type game, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of like Empire at War, or something like along those lines from back in the day.
Yeah.
I could see it being something like that. Whatever it is, clearly it's a smaller title, if it even exists. It's a smaller title.
Right.
But I could see EA doing this. They're saying, hey, let's make smaller games every year. We got Squadrons this past year. Another smaller game, it'll probably sell for $40, like Squadrons did. Tell a little story there and just have something Star Wars, because we assume we're not getting any other big Star Wars release as far as games this year, other than the Lego game. But as far as any other titles like the next Jedi Fallen Order and stuff, like that's probably either going to be next year or even farther out. But we assume this year we're not getting any big game release. So
yeah, I agree.
So it'd be nice to have a smaller title to fill in until we get that next big one.
Right, I agree. And something to think about as well is that we know that now it's no longer EA, it is now Lucasfilm Games.
Yeah.
So we already have confirmation that Ubisoft is going to be doing something, or was it maybe being Bethesda? I could be wrong. That's not true. Not listen to me.
No, it's not.
It was
Bethesda.
Ubisoft for sure, though. I feel like there's other ones though. I'm just blanking.
Well, we know that Aspire is working on something.
Yeah. So my point is that now that other developers and other game studios are getting their hands on stuff, EA is kind of like, okay, well, to keep ourselves relevant until something else can come out, we really need to start pushing out a few smaller things to keep our name at the top of the board, so to speak.
Sorry, let me rephrase that. We don't know that Aspire is doing well. It's rumored that Aspire is doing well.
Yeah, that was a rumor last week.
The only official developers we know that are working on Star Wars games right now is EA's Respawn. Or wait, is that even official?
I don't
now I'm doubting.
I know for a fact, like Ubisoft having one.
Ubisoft is official. They are working on a game.
Now, whatever the EA.
We know that EA they're doing more games. We know that throughout different developers in there that they own.
Right.
And then it's rumored Aspyr is doing something.
Right. So anyway, my point with all that being said is just that it would make sense. Like this is a rumor.
Zynga, I guess. I don't know if Zynga is owned by EA or not.
Right. I don't think so.
Zynga is owned by Facebook, isn't it?
I don't.
Or was at one time or something.
I think they're definitely a subsidiary of them, but I don't know. Anyway, but regardless, Anyway. We're kind of getting off track here. let's reel back in. Anyway, so I'll just say this is a rumor, but yes, it could very well be true just because EA probably wants to stay relevant. So, yeah.
All right. Well, moving on to our third rumor. This is interesting for me, one that excites me quite a bit. Now, very slight spoiler for the High Republic issue 2 comic. So if you just don't want a single thing spoiled for you, skip ahead a little bit. But again, like this is something small as far as for that comic story goes. But okay, so moving on to what that is. In that story, we have Master Skier, who is in that, and they're investigating a distress signal. And anyways, and during all of that, he is surprised and he yells out Surik's blade. Okay, now
interesting.
That may or may not mean anything to you, depending on how much you like Knights of the Old Republic 2. And so to kind of get into that, what that potentially means, and this is just potentially because we really don't know for sure, but I feel pretty confident that this is what this is kind of leaning towards, is that Surik's blade is talking about Mitra Surik. And Mitra Surik is the Jedi exile in Knights of the Old Republic 2. So that's who you play as. That's your character that you play as. Her name was, her legend's name now. It used to be what they called the canon name and character of the exile, but now I guess it would be Legends. But her name was Mitra Surik, and that was the canon version of the story.
Yeah.
And so in that story, she's with Revan, and she actually becomes one of Revan's generals in the Mandalorian Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And in that conflict, where Revan, so they disregard the Order's wishes, and they go and fight this war. This is where Revan splits from the Order, but the interesting thing with Mitra is she goes back.
Yeah,
she goes back to the Order. She also loses her Force abilities throughout this war, and so she comes back to the Jedi, and the Jedi exile her.
Yeah.
And in one last act of defiance, she goes, as she's leaving, she stabs her sword into the ground at the temple.
Interesting. Okay. And
so, therefore, that's kind of what I'm thinking is Surik's blade.
Well, so I don't know if you have this or not, but there's been a development on this a little further.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, random Twitter user says, wait, Surik? As in Mitra Surik, a.k.a. the Exile? I don't even care if it's an odd, blah, 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 Dakota 2, blah, blah. Kevin Scott replies with a GIF that says, maybe? Interesting.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I think it's definitely supposed to be.
Yeah.
It just makes sense, especially with that. You know, maybe that's a legend they talk about, you know, is the time that Mitra Surik, the Jedi Exile, you know, stabbed her blade into the ground and walked away from the Order.
Yeah.
What's so exciting about this is there is no canon reference to the Exile. If this potentially is our first reference to that, so making the Jedi Exile canon.
Right.
Now, Revan has been made canon, but the Exile had not been. If this truly is that, this is our first reference, which means now both of those characters are canon, which means we're just that much closer right. to some kind of resurgence of the Knights of the Old Republic.
It feels like it's building, man. It just feels like it's building more and more. Especially with all the Aspire rumors and things of that nature. I don't know. It very well could be. It very well could be.
And something else to think about is like if Sirik's blade still means that what it was back then, that's also interesting because that means that story still exists.
Sure.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that they did fight in the Mandalorian War and right. that then and that, you know, she goes back and Revan doesn't and
it's not the implication of that is pretty huge because yes, they could we talked about this before, they could bring back KOTOR, sure, but then the story could be totally different or different characters or different interpretations. But them bringing up Sirik's blade, it would insinuate, if that is what it's truly referencing, that all those stories that we know and love did truly occur. And then that would tell me then that they probably just would be doing a total remake of the game, as in like not reimagining necessarily, but a remake with better graphics or whatever. So that's actually really interesting. That's very interesting.
Indeed. And I'm hoping that the High Republic references the Old Republic some more.
Right.
I think that'd be really cool to get start to get some idea of what the Old Republic was. Like if they're planning on continuing this route of maybe it's not really that different from what we already know about it,
right.
or if they are going to make some huge different changes. I just would like to start to get an idea of what that history is now. And and I think this is kind of the beginning of maybe getting a little more of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, come on. I mean, through time and time and time again, through all these different references and all these different points of interest, we kept getting all these little nods and little hints at High Republic and little mentions and things. And finally, it became an entire publishing series. And now we're getting so many Old Republic stuff through shows, games, books, etc., comics. I mean, it only makes sense that they're going to do something with it. I don't know what. They're going to do something with it. So very interesting stuff. We're going to go ahead and move on. But we can talk about that all day because, KOTOR and also like that.
As most of you know by this point, as soon as anything new that's set in the Old Republic happens, I'm going to freak out.
Oh, yeah.
And you can guarantee we'll go live. We will go live like immediately, and we're going to talk all about it when that day comes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're speaking in faith. It will come.
It's going to come. I know we're getting...
I know.
I know we're getting Old Republic eventually. In what format?
Right.
In what story? I don't know.
It's too much gold there.
We're going to go back to that era.
There's too much eventually. Gold there. You know what I'm saying? Now, they might have to exhaust High Republic to how much they want to do. But
maybe. We may have to,
we'll see,
we may have to see the High Republic played out before they eventually go back to the Old Republic. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, we're spending enough time on that, so let's move on to our third rumor for the week, and that is Ya Heard with Purd, Amber Heard, reportedly in talks for a star... in talks for... Anyone knows what that is?
Yeah,
well, anyway. In talks for Star Wars role. So this is a pretty out there rumor. My opinion, I'm on a lot of different... Star Wars forums and groups and stuff.
It's just from we got this covered. I mean, I don't know what...
Yeah, I mean, well, in that case, that changes everything, So good. No, I see a lot of people posting this as kind of like bait, on those groups just to get a rise out of people or, whatever. And a lot of times it gets shot down. No one ever really believes it. And frankly, I don't know that I believe it as well, but it is something that's been floating around quite a bit, so we want to talk about it, at least for just a second, at least bring it up to your attention. Amber Heard has been on a lot of different stuff, but of course with her as well, there's a lot of controversy that's kind of going around with her. A lot of people don't agree with some of the things that she's done, so, I would be surprised if that's true.
Here's the deal. Daniel Richtman is the one who officially broke this news, and he's usually pretty on it with his rumors that he's predicted a lot of things in the past. So that's the only thing that makes me start to wonder if maybe there is some something true to this.
Right, which there's so many different things though. You know what I'm saying? There's so many different new projects.
And that's the thing. She could, maybe she is trying out for something, but that doesn't even mean she's going to get the role,
Sure, yeah.
But here's what I want you to do. Look up Avar Kriss.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that.
And then look up a picture of Amber Heard.
Yeah.
Put that side by side.
Mm-hmm.
And especially like the cover of Light of the Jedi with Avar Kriss right there front and center, and then a picture of Amber Heard, and you're going to see that
there's some similarities there. There's definitely some similarities. For sure.
I think that she could easily be cast as Avar Kriss, just going off of looks.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No. That is definitely something that could happen. Because just looking at the pictures and stuff like that, yes, they do have it's very strikingly similar in terms of the looks. Again, I think it's just one of those things with Disney, is that do they want to run the risk of getting somebody that has controversial things going around them? No, who knows, right? We don't know that that's the case or not the case, or it's just complete rumor at this point. But yeah, it is pretty similar. It is pretty similar.
Yeah, and so, we kind of assume we're going to start to see some more High Republic shows or movies eventually. You have to assume that's. We know we're getting one. However, I don't think Avar Kriss would still be alive by the time of that one.
Right. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we may not get something else later in the future.
Exactly.
Or she could be in something completely different, whole different character. I just wanted to point out the fact that she does resemble Avar Kriss.
Yeah, absolutely. She does for sure resemble her. Yeah.
So, anyways, let's move on to our fourth rumor today. And this is Mando and Rey will reportedly meet in future Star Wars project.
Yeah, that's kind of out there.
So again, we got this covered. So consider that before anything else.
Right.
But they say that they've heard from their sources, and it's the same ones that told them Luke Skywalker was going to be in The Mandalorian, and the same one that told them that Hayden Christensen would return in Kenobi, that Pedro Pascal's bounty hunter and Daisy Ridley's Rey will end up crossing paths in a future movie or TV show. At least that's the plan right now.
There's a pretty big time jump between The Mandalorian and Force Awakens, though. So, that would be surprising. I don't know the exact time frame off the top of my head, but I want to say it was somewhere along the lines of 20 years, which is not impossible, I suppose, if that is the case. But it would be a pretty big jump, my opinion. I'm trying to look it up here real quick, because I see pictures all over online, but it doesn't actually give you dates and stuff like that. So it is difficult to put it. But yeah, I'm under the presumption, unless I'm completely just wrong, that it's somewhere 20 years.
It'd be 22 to 24 years, something like that, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that's totally doable. He's just going to be,
say he's in his mid to late 30s right now. Well, that put him in his mid to late 50s.
I think he's supposed to be in his 30s, so in his 50s, that'd easily be doable.
Yeah, it would. It would. I just don't. Me personally, I'm not saying that I wouldn't want it or anything. I'm just saying I don't know what the context would be, right? What's the point? You know what I'm saying?
I have a suggestion of what that might be.
Okay.
I like to think. And I've been kind of always saying this. I like to think that the Mandalorian will be the leader of the Mandalorian, so he'll be Mandalore.
Yeah, okay.
So by that point, Rey's on whatever new adventure, and she either goes to Mandalore or she finds or she needs help from the Mandalorians or something to that nature, and therefore ends up meeting the leader, who is revealed to be Din Djarin.
That would be very interesting, for sure. Now, my opinion, this couldn't really be a live action, though. Now, this can maybe be in books or comics or something like that, but when we have fairly affirmative statements from... Now, we've kind of questioned this in the past, of course, but Daisy Ridley saying that she's done with Star Wars, she doesn't really want to, blah, blah, blah.
There's been newer reports lately saying that she's open to being back in Star Wars. You just never can take any of that stuff.
Of course she is. What a liar.
Listen, I'm so split on this because part of me feels like, of course they're going to bring back Rey. They spent all kinds of time and money on the sequel trilogy, and she is arguably the best part of, besides maybe Ben. I mean, I think the two of them together make up the best part of the sequel trilogy.
Oh yeah, easily.
But Ben is gone. So if you do any stories past what we've seen in the sequel trilogy, of course it's going to be Rey, because there's so much of Rey's stories that can still be told.
Right.
We've only seen the beginning of Rey's adventure, truly.
What I could be wrong on this one as well, but I'm pretty sure that the time span between episodes 7, 8, and 9 is only 2 or 3 years. Okay, it's very short.
It's very, very short. It's only 1 year.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was only 1 year.
It's only 1 year.
There you go. Absolutely.
And so all of that happened in basically just like a year.
Right.
And so there's so much more I think you can tell there. But then the other side of it is that the sequel trilogy, a lot of people don't like what happened in the sequel trilogy. A lot of people are disappointed in that trilogy. And so does Disney want to continue those characters?
Well,
that is the big question.
There was a statement made by someone, and we talked about this a while back, how Disney is not going to get rid of it. They're not going to cancel it or go back on the sequel trilogy, but they're kind of ignoring it. Remember when we said that?
Right. And if you look at their lineup, it does kind of feel like maybe they're kind of ignoring it right now.
Yeah.
They're focusing on this on this Mandalorian era, that period of time. They're putting all of their shows and stuff in this time.
Right.
And we have a little dab of prequel stuff.
Right.
But nothing right now that we know of is set in the sequel trilogy, except potentially the new movie, Rogue Squadron.
Sure, yeah.
Might be. But even then, we're not real sure where that's set. It's very up in the air on if that is where that movie is in the timeline.
Right.
But there is potential that is actually after Rise of Skywalker. And if so, if that movie ends up being after Rise of Skywalker, I'll start to think, okay, there is a good chance we may get Rey again.
Yeah, it's definitely going to depend on when that timeline works out.
I'm hesitant just to base off to see what Lucasfilm decides seems to be the right call there, because I think they're a little hesitant to do too much sequel era stuff.
Right.
But I think there is a lot of potential for Rey, and I say, why not see an older Din Djarin as the leader of the Mandalorians, or something similar to that.
Something along those lines,
why not see that? Why not see a grown-up Grogu?
Right. I think everybody would like to see that.
Think about it. If we're eventually going to see a grown-up Grogu, it's probably going to have to be
to some degree connected to Rey.
I mean, it's going to probably be after the sequel trilogy if we see him.
And
we don't even know then if that's enough for him to have grown up much. We really don't know.
That would make him I'm just speculating, right? 75, right? 75 years old. At 50, he was still
we don't
know
when it changes.
75 years.
I assume it goes once they start to grow, they grow.
Goo.
Anyway. I assume all of a sudden he's just gonna shoot up, right?
Yeah, most likely.
But again, that's all speculation.
Dude, I would love to figure out the Yoda species. Basically, it starts out this tiny baby forever, and then all of a sudden, within a 2 or 3 year span, grows to this massive Jack 6 foot huge thing,
and then
shrivels back down over 100 or 200 years to this low.
Well, I still have this. I still think this would be hilarious. I don't think they're actually going to do it, but I think it would make for a great moment. It's in one of these seasons of The Mandalorian, he's doing something and he turns around and all of a sudden it's just an old Yoda, and like they go straight from like baby to just old, and so all of a sudden they're in just that split second he all of a sudden shot up, and now he's this like older.
Whoa, who are you?
Like it would be pretty funny.
No, be not, do you?
And that's the other thing. That's the other thing I want to know. Do they all talk like Yoda or not?
That's a big thing too.
Is that a Yoda only
never heard
thing,
Yaddle
or is
talk.
that the species?
Exactly.
I really want to know.
A species trait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is interesting because with speech, linguistics, typically, it's aliens. So I guess we can't really compare that to anything, can we?
There's nothing to compare it to other than just waiting and seeing.
Speech usually isn't some kind of inheritable trait. Like, well, yes, for humans. Anyway, so. Yeah, that would be pretty interesting. Yeah. So I'm excited to see where they go with that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so our final rumor for this week is that there's possible Nintendo Switch leak reveals a possible return of the Star Wars Commando game. So that could be pretty big. I mean, and this is my opinion, pretty plausible rumor. I don't know what you think about this, but I'm like, we're getting so many ports to Switch from all these older games, and Star Wars Commando is a very highly loved game, along with the Jedi series, the older Jedi series, like Jedi Academy, blah blah blah, right? So Commando is a very beloved game, and it's around the same times, maybe a little bit, younger. But my point is that I don't think that it's too much of a stretch to think that Star Wars Commando could come to Switch.
Oh, yeah, I think this is very plausible, especially since Aspire's been doing exactly that with all of the the older Star Wars games. They've been porting them to Switch now for a while, and actually, that's the rumor here is that Aspire is doing it.
Yeah,
and we know Aspire is actually doing quite a bit of different projects right now, including potentially a Knights of the Old Republic.
Right.
So I think all of this could easily be happening. It's just a matter of waiting to see for them to reveal it. But let's go ahead and move on past that. We still have not even reached our main topic
Q&A.
yet,
We're like an hour in.
or our Q&A, or our releases. So we're going to have to jump forward here.
We're making up from last week,
So let's just jump into our releases very quickly. There are no comics coming out this week.
Wow.
There are no books coming out this week. There is nothing coming out this week.
Wow, so a lot of stuff. So great.
So enjoy your Star Wars free week. And there'll be releases again next week, though. So
there you go.
So there you have it.
Okay, so let's chug right along into our Q&A, where we try to do 3 topics a week, but we only have 2, which we did have 3, but we're using one of your questions as our main topic. So our very first question this week comes from Greg Stewart, who says, what are some planets that you all would like to see highlighted as a setting in a movie or TV show? Anything from comics, books, current movies, etc. So we see most of the main planets outlined in the movies, comics, books, things that we've already seen, right? But he's saying basically, what would you like to see in a movie or TV show? So
just like what would you want to see more of? Like, is this something that cannot have already been in a?
He's just saying, what are some planets that you would like to see highlighted as a setting in a movie, TV show? Anything from comics, books, current movies, etc.
Okay, so just basically more what we would.
What kind of planet would you like to see in a live action setting? I'd imagine. For me, I know I kind of harp on this a lot, but Dantooine is a huge one for me. I love Dantooine. I mean, it just holds a special place from KOTOR. One of the first times you finally feel like you're becoming a Jedi, you're getting away from this oppression of Coruscant, blah, 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 And, so I don't know, the huge rolling fields and the Jedi Temple, and I would just love to see that. Now, of course, you couldn't really see that unless you had like some kind of Old Republic TV show or movie, but a man can dream. What about you?
Well, that was my answer as well.
Boo, he's just copying.
People have to get so tired of.
We're so much alike that we just keep.
I'm so bored of our podcast because we always give the same answers.
Right.
But yeah, no, Dantooine holds a special place in my heart as well, and
yeah,
I think it would be really awesome to to see more of that. I potentially in that same Old Republic era with the temple and stuff. I'd love to see that.
Yeah,
but I'm going to throw a couple more out real quick for you. I would like to see more of Mustafar with Vader's castle.
Ooh, yeah.
For sure. I just want to see more of Vader's castle and more of like what goes on there, and so I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
I would also like to see more of Coruscant actually.
Yeah.
In live action.
Yeah. It'd be cool
because we got a lot of it in the prequels. We got a small glimpse of it in Rogue One, very very small glimpse.
Right.
But I would love to see something actually set there again, and just see like what they can do with it now.
Right.
Like with CGI, the way they
agree.
can do things these days.
Yeah.
I think it could look even cooler, and I just like to go back there sometime.
I don't think we've seen near enough of Tatooine, so I think we should definitely go back to there. I don't think we've ever need to go back, or I don't think we have seen enough of Jakku. Why does everybody want to go back to Jakku?
Everyone wants to go back to Jakku.
Anyway,
throwing out one other thing, I think it'd be cool to see more at like Kashyyyk, like with the Wookiees.
I was going to say that. I was actually going to say that, like, not even joking.
I think that'd be fun as well.
We saw a lot of really cool stuff in I can't think what it's called. Jedi Fallen Order. Yeah. We saw a lot of really cool stuff we could explore and stuff, but I would love to see just like some live action stuff. That was such a cool planet. It has that kind of.
And one more. I didn't realize I would have so many, but actually Korriban from also from That's Old Republic, but that was where the Sith were, and lots of like Sith are buried there, and stuff like that, which I know it has another name. There's two names for it, Moraban and Korriban.
Yeah.
So you say Tatooine.
Yeah.
You said it so seriously too.
Moraban. Yeah.
And so, anyways, I think we got some of that in Fallen Order. Doesn't he go there? Doesn't he go there at one point?
Well, I do think that the final episode of season 6 of Clone Wars.
Or is that what I'm thinking of?
Yoda goes there to see Bane.
I don't know. I know we have gotten some more of that in current canon, but I would like to see that in live action at some point.
Yeah. Either way, I would love to see that. I mean, there's so many good ones. I mean, listen, show me anything other than maybe Tatooine, and I think I'd be happy. I mean, show me Tatooine. I don't care. I'd be happy too. But anyway, so yeah. Dantooine is definitely my biggest one. Kashyyyk's another great one. But yeah, there's some really good ones. I love to see, like you said, Coruscant, Mustafar, a bunch of good ones. So so great question. We're gonna move on to our final question because we only had 2 technically this week, and this is actually one of the ones that we had been saving from previous ones because it's actually a bigger question, which is it's ironic because we saved it because we didn't have much time last week, and we're sitting an hour and 2 minutes without even getting to our anyway.
My wife's gonna be upset.
Yeah.
The other day I heard her. I heard her in the other room, and I heard us talking, and I was like, "Oh, she's listening to our podcast." Bruh. And I heard it was
so boring.
It was it was us arguing about Boba Fett versus Din Djarin, and I was like, "Wait a second!" I was like, "You're behind. You're not even." Up to date.
But I can't listen to all these 6-hour-long episods.
That's basically what she said. She goes, "I can't keep up with it when they're so long."
That's rude. Hey, that's rude. You hear me?
And I was like, well, okay.
I'm sorry. Hang on. Well, at least we know that Alex Mason wants more. So. Anyway.
Maybe only Alex Mason.
Yeah, only him. But hey, maybe JB, which is funny because this is a conjoined question from both Alex and JB.
Okay, well.
So because Alex asked a question and then JB asked a question, and they were very, very similar. So I don't know if you guys fed off of one another or they conspired. I don't know.
Or one of them just stole.
Or one of them completely just ripped one another off.
Alex Mason stole from the question.
Wow, Alex.
Me and Alex are just going to continue.
I don't know what kind of feud you guys have with one another.
Well, it's all because of his movie rankings. I just don't agree.
Yeah. Well, Alex, just know that don't leave because of him. I still love you. Anyway, so this is actually a really interesting question. Alex asked, do you think Darth Revan or Palpatine would win in a fight? But then JB says, do you think Darth Bane or Palpatine would win in a fight? So let me give you my short answer, and I'll let Drew talk, and then we can come back maybe a little more digestive answer. But my short answer is this. What made Palpatine powerful, other than just how strong he was in the Force? And I mean, I'm not going to deny that. And he was a good duelist, but the thing is with Palpatine is that one of the things that truly was his strength was how conniving he was. He planned things, right? He was always in the background. He was always in the shadows, and he didn't care to take anywhere shy of 3 decades to plan to take over the entire galaxy. So that's what really was his big benefit. Now, again, I have no doubt that he is, very, very, very powerful in the Force. We know that he is, and I have no doubt that he's a good duelist. But, we don't see him in too many fights. But every fight that you do see him, he's already planned for it, if you think about it. And that is, of course, his fight with Yoda. In episode 3, of course, he already expected Yoda to come to him. Secondarily, after Anakin had ousted him as the Sith Lord, he expected people to come. So he already had planned. Now, again, not to diminish, though, the fact that he absolutely wiped out 3 Jedi Masters, you know what I'm saying, in that fight. So my whole point in saying is that, how do I say this exactly? He's very powerful, but most of his power is more clandestine. It's more in the shadows. It's more things like that. He doesn't have outright just battle experience, sheer on the battlefield experience. Unlike Revan and Bane, who are very smart tacticians, who have plenty of battle experience, not just with 1 or 2 people, but huge swaths of Sith and Jedi coming against one another. And they're both highly intelligent. Let's say, who knows, maybe they're not as strong in the Force, or maybe they're not as intelligent as Palpatine, which, of course, I don't know about the Force part. But my point is this: when you would go with a one-on-one fight, I do think it's kind of like a Batman versus Superman scenario, maybe not that extreme. If Palpatine had some time to prepare, he already had thought it out, whatever, he might have some, strength there. Overall, I would say, for both my answers, I would say that both Revan and Bane would probably beat Palpatine in a one-on-one fight to the death. That's just my opinion, because they're clearly going to be better sword players, however you want to say it, saber combatants. I definitely think that. I do think that they're going to have better on the field, on the battlefield, in the quick moment tactician, what I'm saying, fighting skills. So I do think that they would probably beat Palpatine. I don't think it would be easy either way, but that is my answer. Drew, what do you think with Bane versus Palpatine and Revan versus Palpatine?
I think Revan versus Palpatine. I think Revan, and my reasoning would be because, in the end, Revan is always a light side user, and right. The light always defeats the dark.
Right.
And so that's honestly just what it comes down to for me.
That's a cheap answer.
I mean, it's just the truth. I think that is the reason why Revan would win. But with Palpatine versus Bane, that's where it gets a little trickier for me. I think back on like the way that Bane dies, and he basically like got taken over by this this stuff he had on him. I can't remember what it was called, but it weakened him to the point to where his apprentice could take him out pretty easily. And I think that Palpatine, again, like you were saying, always has a plan, and
right.
I think there would be a scenario where Palpatine could trick Bane into maybe just for Bane's lust of power,
right?
Kind of trick him into something that would be able to defeat him. But
yeah,
I think if you can get Bane in close quarters to Palpatine, I think Bane could pretty easily destroy Palpatine,
right?
Just off sheer force.
I'm saying it kind of just calls back to my point. Like, what is the situation? What's the scenario? Has Palpatine already known about this? Has he been able to prepare? Is he being caught off guard? Is it hey, I'm meeting you as equals? I'm not going to try to surprise you. Let's just fight together. What's the situation? And I think that's going to really determine the answer for that. Yeah, I think I agree with you on Revan. Either way, even if Palpatine was prepared, I would imagine most likely he would probably win. But with Bane, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that, especially since he is kind of more available for manipulation. And Palpatine is one of the best manipulators in the galaxy, probably. I definitely think that the scenario would probably really dictate the situation between Bane and Palpatine.
But we know at the end of Bane's life, basically Bane releases his essence and tries to go into his apprentice and tries to take over her body, and she actually wins, just through that battle of wills. And
is it Rey?
yeah. And she wins, but it is said that there was a little bit of Bane inside of her.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And so with that, I mean, I don't know. I could see a scenario where either one could win.
Yeah. Like I said, I think with Revan, he probably would win all the way around. But with Bane, I would say most likely, like you said, there's scenarios where either of them could win. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not really too passionate about it. I think they're all very powerful in their own right. I would, like I said, I would say that definitively Revan would probably win against any of them. But that's just kind of how OP that they wrote the character, though, too. So,
right.
Anyway, so that's a great question. That's a really awesome one. Revan, Bane, Palpatine. Again, a lot of really cool stories, and of course, Palpatine being the only one that's canon as of currently. Who knows in the future what might be held? Maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see some of them come back to light, and maybe their powers will change, stay the same.
Yeah, that's what's crazy is so much of this, what we know about these characters could change. And even with Bane, we don't know a ton about what Bane did anymore now at this point. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So without any further ado, that was a great question. We're going to conclude our Q&A for this week. So thank each and every one of you for asking us questions. And Alex and JB, I apologize for taking so long to get to this question, but it seems like every week that it was just like we had so many things going on. We was getting so long and stuff like that. So we just kept pushing back because it's such a long question. But it's a good one. We like talking about it, so we thank you for it. Without any further ado, though, we're going to get into our main topic, and that actually comes from a third question that we had from Brandon Dukes, who basically just said, let's do a deep dive into Snoke and his past and possible theories.
Yeah, and so we both saw this and we're like, let's just make that our main topic.
Seriously.
There's not a whole lot of other things to talk about right now as far as main topics go.
Yeah.
And I was looking back through and I was like, you know what? We actually have not used Snoke as our main topic yet. And there's, Snoke is still to this day somewhat of a mystery in some ways. And so there's a lot to speculate there, a lot to discuss. So I don't know what you're thinking, but my thoughts are maybe we should start this out with kind of just talking about what we do know about Snoke.
Yeah, I agree.
First and foremost, it's just kind of like, what do we know about Snoke so far?
Yeah, I agree. So I mean, just off the top of my head, let's just start off with saying it like this. So first of all, obviously, the first time that we hear about Snoke is in, of course, Star Wars Episode 7, Force Awakens, and he is this kind of overbearing, omniscient, omnipresent villain that is more powerful than anybody we've ever seen. And, of course, we don't know a whole lot about him after Force Awakens because that was the point. They wanted to just introduce this super big, scary new character. And then as Force Awakens, as Last Jedi comes around, we get fully fleshed out character. We see him. We know who he is in terms of okay, his name is Snoke. He is the leader of the First Order, the supreme leader. And then, of course, he's the master over of Ben Solo, or Kylo Ren, as he is then taken the moniker of. But basically, at this point, up to at least Last Jedi, at this point, we think, okay, this is the new. Like, where did he come from? We have no clue who he is. But hey, he's like doing things in the Force that we've never seen before, and all this stuff. Very tall, very humanoid-like figure, with kind of disfigured and things of that nature. A lot of crazy speculations, but again, very powerful in the Force. He's the supreme leader. But then, as we see in The Last Jedi, because the director wanted to take it in kind of a different direction and do some different things, they kill him off. And so that's very interesting. I'm not sure what exactly they plan to do with that character if that same director would have had the last movie. But that, of course, goes to play the plot details that Snoke was not actually the one in control. Up to this point, we thought, okay, he's the bad man. He's the big villain. He's the one. But come to find out, of course, it was actually Palpatine who still again was in the background planning, scheming, and using Snoke as a tool, using Snoke as somebody. So before I get into the events necessarily of Rise of Skywalker and what we know about that, let's then look back and say, okay, this has been a question for a while. What did Snoke, was he following every command of Palpatine? Was he being controlled in the sense of like a puppet? No to both of those. Snoke was actually independent. He had free thought and free will. With that being said, though, Palpatine was always the puppeteer, though. He wasn't physically pulling the strings, but he was like influencing his thoughts, right? He was putting him into situations and influencing the circumstances to where basically, although Snoke probably had no clue who Palpatine was, he was always kind of like getting him to do the things that he wanted him to do, manipulating him into being this kind of proxy Sith Lord, dark side user that's controlling everything. So, as we found out then in Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, the first shot that we get, one of the first shots that we get, is a bunch of test tubes in Exegol, and it has none other than Snoke after he's been killed, right? And it's not just one Snoke, it's 2, 3, 4, a bunch of different Snokes, and he's basically cloned. He's this manufactured being. And we can get more into what that is exactly, but I'm just speaking strictly of the facts of what we know and what we see. So he's this manufactured being that was created by the Final Order, but more specifically Palpatine. So up to that point, that's kind of what we know specifically up at the front at who Snoke is. He influenced Ben to come to the dark side, become Kylo, but he himself was being manipulated and influenced by Palpatine, whether that was conscious or subconscious, and eventually was killed, but he was manufactured. So, Drew, anything further to add to the things that we strictly know for fact?
So we know that what the official, like what they call him, is a artificial humanoid genetic strand cast.
Okay.
and what a strand cast is an artificial life form constructed through various scientific methods such as bioengineering, cloning, and genetic experimentation. The genetic structure of a strand cast could be significantly altered through genetic engineering, resulting in a non-identical clone of the original source.
So that's kind of what they did with me a little bit when I was younger.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Trying to take my third arm off. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. So a lot of there's a lot of different ways you can take what was said right there through
right.
that. And a lot of different people have so many different opinions on where that source, what that original source is.
Right.
But that is what we know for a fact, is that he is some type of clone.
Right.
He has been cloned from something.
Right.
Of course, the movie wants you to assume that he's just a weird clone of Palpatine.
Right.
But I don't know about you, but I'm not so sure that is what he's based off of.
Yes and no. I think there might be.
I think some of Palpatine has definitely been used, but I don't know it's all Palpatine.
I agree. Well, here's the thing. As you just read, a strand cast is a clone that basically shares dissimilar aspects where they can be from the same one, like a singular person, but not look exactly the same or act in the same way and things of that nature. It's a strand cast rather than a strict, like, oh, this is a one-for-one clone. So here's the thing. Okay, let's just dive right into it. So as we see in Mandalorian Season 2, the doctor, right, that was over Baby Yoda and stuff like that, he had a Kaminoan patch on his jacket, and they even call him, like, in the credits or something like that, like a Kaminoan clone engineer or scientist or something along those lines. So he clearly is delving into cloning and trying to perfect cloning. But as we know this from the movies and the books, right? Later on in the sequel trilogy, Palpatine is only alive because he has a cloned body that he's put his spirit into, and that how Rey even came to exist was that he had a clone that he tried to raise up in his place that he would probably eventually transfer his spirit to or whatever, but bucked the system, didn't want to be a part of it, and started a family and had Rey. Well, okay, you see a picture of him, and it does not look like a young, I can't remember his name, who plays Palpatine. But anyway, it doesn't look like a young version of him. It looks like some random guy. So most likely they're experimenting with a strand cast that don't look exactly like the original donor, stuff like that. And they're using Baby Yoda's blood to transfer Force ability to those strand cast clones. So, I mean, you're right. I don't know that it's necessarily fully 100% Palpatine, but I do, in my opinion, feel as if that's kind of what it was originally. That they had all these test tubes and they're trying to get those strand cast clones for Palpatine to embody, but they end up not working. So he just used what he had to make Snoke and had this proxy puppet leader. So, yeah, a lot of stuff there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you think they were trying to create Palpatine, or trying to create a body for Palpatine to exist in.
Yes.
And when they finally achieved that, then Palpatine decided to go ahead and use some of that to then create Snoke.
Pretty much. That's the way I look at it.
Okay. Well, I don't disagree with that, but I also could see a scenario where they accidentally create Snoke while trying to create a body for Palpatine. So Snoke was actually created first.
Yes, and I do think that makes sense because later on we see that his son, which is not a son, but it's like a perfect human being, right? Mm-hmm. That had a kid and all this stuff like that. So Snoke very well could have been the first iteration.
And we still don't understand exactly how Palpatine like lived throughout all this time, because he had to keep. So I don't know if he kept like getting these really bad bodies that only lasted like a very short amount of time, and he just kept like jumping from body to body.
Yeah.
Or I mean, we still don't really know exactly how that worked.
Well, and here's the thing: Exegol is like a Sith planet, or like at least it holds the dark side and blah blah blah, right?
Right.
And we know from the book, I believe it was, or something along those lines. I believe it was the book, the novelization of Episode 9, or I don't know. I could be wrong. Wherever it's at. But we know...
I think it's the book.
But basically, at the moment of right before death in Episode 6, he transfers his essence to Exegol. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe he's already had been planning this, because we know from the comics, of the Darth Vader comics, he already was on Exegol prior to the events of Episode 6. We already know he was on Exegol. So, my point is that we don't know what he was doing, but maybe he somehow manufactured through Sith alchemy and things of that nature, like some kind of vessel for his spirit to dwell in. Yeah. Without having to go into bodies. I don't know. Yeah. Who knows?
Well, and with all that, the latest issue of Darth Vader, which came out on Wednesday, Darth Vader is literally on his way to Exegol right now. So the next issue most likely will deal with Vader being on Exegol. So that's just to let you guys know.
And
if that's
also
something you're interested in.
Takes on like a whole fleet by himself in a TIE fighter. So that's kind of awesome. But anyway.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of not about Snoke. So sorry, it kind of is, but it's not.
Just letting people know if they want to potentially learn more, and that's the thing. It might answer some questions,
right?
Because we don't know what Palpatine's already planning there, and what he may already have set into action there,
right?
So we'll see, but.
Yeah, so saying what I said and saying what you said, I'm fairly confident that's the answer. That they were trying to manufacture these Force-sensitive, I can't remember what you called it earlier, but those non-clone clones, right? Strandcast, yes. They're trying to create these Force-sensitive Strandcasts that then Palpatine can take over with his essence or with his spirit. And that, yes, that basically Snoke was the kind of first iterations of that. That's why he looks so
messed up,
demorphized, and messed up.
It would make sense based off what we've seen in The Mandalorian. That quick view we get does kind of have some resemblance to Snoke.
Yeah, it does. It does, and it's very like basically not fully formed.
Right.
Just
but you
like
can kind of see maybe a big line in the head. Like a big where it looked kind of like with Snoke. But again, who knows for sure? And I think that sure seems to be what they're.
I agree, and I think the first lineup of these Strandcast clones were mostly just trying to see if they can get Force ability through the blood. They didn't really care about the aesthetics of how the body actually looked and if it was a fully formed body. They just wanted to see if they could use the midichlorian count of the blood of Baby Yoda or any Force-sensitive being, right? To insert that and inject that into these new Strandcasts to get Force ability. They didn't, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think they cared necessarily what it looked like, and so Snoke would become the first iteration. So he looked kind of goofy and messed up and super tall and lanky and stuff, but yet super powerful in the Force because he's like one of the first ones that got a lot of the blood. Maybe, who knows, right?
Well, I always loved the idea. I always loved the idea of Snoke having something to do with Plagueis. I always loved that.
Yeah, that was our original theory. Yeah, I remember that.
They've pretty much gone completely away from that at this point.
Yeah,
but there is a small little chance that they did incorporate some of Plagueis that maybe Sidious had around, and that they used some of his DNA to create what they have there. But I think that's very unlikely at this point. Mm-hmm. It was more likely a long time ago when we first speculated on this stuff, but it does seem now that it's most likely was Palpatine, and it seems like some of Baby Yoda's blood in there too. Yeah. Which then, as we see, Snoke is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, exactly. So he could have had some of Baby Yoda's and Palpatine's blood in him. Yeah. And here's the thing. Once they realized that doesn't actually make sense, but let me come back to that. Once they realized that they could extract Force sensitivity from the blood, then they would try to use that. But I'm going to come back and say it doesn't make sense because at that point, right, Palpatine didn't have a body. He was disembodied. He was spirit had came from the blew up Death Star to Exegol. So they didn't have his body at that point, but I don't know how they work around that. But.
Well, that's the thing. We don't know if he had bodies there to go in and
well, it could have already been manufacturing, I guess. Yeah.
Or maybe some of these Sith did. Maybe he went inside of some kind of item. There's different things that they like helmet like. There was masks and stuff that they would attach to, and so I mean like maybe there was something like that Palpatine was in. But
well, if you remember when we read those Sith dark side horror story, short story things that you did on Exegol, there was this weird little being that ran around, and then like basically he tricked somebody into becoming that being for himself, and he went off and became like normal or died or whatever, and that person that got trapped became that crazy little being. So, I mean, there's clearly something there, whether he became a part of that being or there's other beings or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's still just so much mystery to Exegol and just the whole situation. We don't have all the answers, and honestly, I don't know that we'll ever get all the answers. I don't know.
Probably not.
So I could see them leaving some of this stuff up to mystery. I think with Snoke, I still hope one day they let James Luceno write a novel, just call it Snoke, and just give us the full story from beginning to end for Snoke.
But what would be interesting, I agree, 100% agree, but what would be interesting is have that first person introspection sometimes when he's like thinking, and he's always has like, it's like, he feels like there's like some kind of nagging thought in the back of his head. It's like Palpatine.
That'd be cool. And that's the other thing, it's our understanding that Snoke has free will, and that he doesn't understand what he is.
Right.
The idea is that he doesn't understand that Palpatine has created him and for his own agenda. That's the way, at least we understand it right now, is that he thought he was doing his own thing, right?
Right, yeah.
And so, but there is still that possibility that maybe he was still answering to, maybe he didn't know it was Palpatine, but that maybe he was answering to something.
Sure,
because you have to assume there was some kind of guidance there, right? To make sure he was doing what he wanted him to do.
Well,
I don't know.
Remember, if I'm not mistaken, Snoke talks about something called to him. Or maybe Palpatine said that, actually.
No, Palpatine said there was something calling to him from the unknown regions.
Probably Exegol.
But it's probably Exegol at this point.
For a second, I thought, well, it makes sense if Snoke said that, but it's not who said it. I mean, I would imagine so. And like I said, here's the thing. The Force, he could just use the Force to influence him, kind of like a mind trick type thing. I don't know. I mean, and here's the thing. What if he does have his blood, right? Then maybe he has more sway over him mentally or over in the Force, because the only reason he has Force ability is because it's through his blood, partially. I don't know. Who knows? So basically, Brandon, there's a lot that we don't know still. And I guess that's what Andrew was basically just trying to say. There's so much that we don't know. I hope that has illuminated you to some degree on who Snoke is, at least a little bit more, that he has really no clue who he even is himself. And
something else I want to add in there is, Snoke thinks he lived through the beginning and fall of the Empire.
Yeah.
Which we know, if it's true he was cloned or whatever, that's not the case.
That's not true, yeah.
And so that's another interesting thing there.
Clearly false information, either he's making it up or he is false information planted within him. Because here's something interesting that I was going to bring out earlier, but it didn't fit, but it fits now, is that when you read the comic Making Kylo Ren or whatever, right? The Kylo Ren comic, is that he talks to Snoke in this weird garden thing. He's wearing these like palm leaves over his junk and has a hat or whatever. And but basically Snoke says, or basically Ben looks at Snoke and is like, "Whoa, you look ugly. What's wrong with you?" And Snoke's like, "Luke did this to me," and which is funny because that's not like there's nothing that shows that Luke ever knew who Snoke was, or attacked him, or anything of that nature. So clearly, I mean, it could have just be, yes, that Snoke is lying to get Ben to sway away from Luke. Absolutely, that's probably what it is. But it could also be, though, that Palpatine is inputting some of these thoughts or some of these fake memories into his mind, so that he lives a certain way or tries to guide him away from Luke or whatever, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, we know, just like you said, Kylo comes to him. They've already had a relationship at this point. And he comes to him to because of what had just happened. But, that's very interesting that when he sees him, he's like, "Whoa, what happened to you?" And
right.
And so that's where things get a little iffy on the whole cloning thing, because we see the clones and they look exactly
like that.
Well,
could it be that he hasn't seen him up to this point, or is a hologram that he manipulated, or it was one of those things where he again just used the Force to manipulate him to seeing what he wanted to see?
Well, see, and that's the thing.
But
again, there's so many. We don't know.
We don't know, and here's another thing that I don't know. We might know this, but okay, Palpatine turns from the handsome, good-looking man that Ian McDiarmid is to this horrible, wretched figure after he releases all the lightning onto that. Could it be that they can change their looks through the Force? Or, because I've heard theories that it happened because he had never truly surrendered himself to the dark side to that point, which I don't believe that for a second. But I think that maybe the Sith can manipulate their looks to some degree, like Palpatine did. And so maybe Snoke did that too. I don't know. Like you said, there's so much that we don't know. So it is difficult. All we can really do is speculate on some of this stuff. Basically, Brandon, there's more that we don't know than we do know with Snoke as of right now. And especially with Disney moving kind of away from the sequel trilogy, supposedly, we may not know. We may not ever figure it out.
Yeah, and a little fun fact for you guys. If you don't want any type of spoiler at all for Into the Dark, then, you can skip forward. But it's just a fun little thing here. The space station, which I think it's called a Maxine station or a Maxine station, something like that, that they're on, that takes place in, is where Snoke lives.
That's interesting.
In the comic. So, where Snoke is at when Kylo comes to see him.
Yeah.
And, he's got that, weird thing on his head and stuff.
Helmet.
And, he's got the garden and stuff.
Yeah.
And anyways, that same place is where the Into the Dark takes place in the High Republic.
That's actually really interesting. I did not know that.
And actually, what's interesting, let's see if I can pull it up here. The quote that Snoke says when he's there is, he asked Ben, "Do you like this place?" And Ben said, "It's interesting, Snoke." And Snoke says, "I'm very fond of it. The people who built it were trying to hold back the dark. That was the entire point, to create an oasis of light here in the great shadow. You see how well it worked. You see what denying the nature of things brought them." So,
very interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting indeed.
And I have not finished that book. I've been slacking on it, I guess.
Oh my gosh!
But I'm curious to see if anything else comes out of that book. Leading into, of course, you're not going to get Snoke, but seeing how it's just very interesting that
it's super cool that tying that together.
Yeah, that we're getting this High Republic story on this space station, and eventually, years way down years in the future,
years later,
Snoke is going to live on that station.
That's cool. That's really cool. So I think we're going to go ahead and probably wrap up there. And we talked probably more than we should have about it a little bit. But yeah, Brandon, just to sum it, everything that we said, I kind of already said it. But with Snoke, it is still a mysterious figure. As the movies have come out, as some of the comics come out, as some of the visual dictionaries and all this stuff come out, we've begun to know more and more, especially with the Mandalorian stuff too. But there's still we have a lot of the dots, but how the dots connect is the part we don't know.
Right.
We're getting more and more dots, but the lines between the dots is kind of vague. But great question. I thought it definitely warranted enough to be our main topic, and it definitely did.
Yeah. For sure.
So keep them coming, Brandon, all you guys, JB, Alex, anybody who's listening doesn't ask questions. We would love to answer them as in our Q&A, or maybe even a main topic if it's deep enough and big enough. Like that. So hope that answered your question. I hope that gives you a little more insight into who Snoke is. But as we end today, we want to thank everybody so much for the continued support towards the podcast, and we look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. Thank you for ordering off the merch store. Thank you for donating to the GoFundMe for Jedi Eternal 2.0. But we'd ask that you guys would please like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, for weekly news, polls, discussions, memes, and more. But also, please follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you would like to, we'd appreciate it if you leave us a review, preferably a good one. But, hey, we'll take whatever we can get. But last but not least, we thank you for listening. And join us next week for episode 50. 50, the big 50. 50 episodes. Pretty crazy. Last but not least, may the Force be with you, and we thank you for joining the Jedi Eternal.